Hello, welcome to my channel or welcome back. Today I have an update all ready for my eyeshadow rotation project. So if you want to see what I have, then please keep watching. So I decided this year, instead of doing an eyeshadow panning project, which I don't know, maybe I'll decide I want to do later in the year or something, I wanted to make sure though that I was touching all of my eyeshadow singles a few times this year, along with my palettes and using them together. I also have really liked building palettes in the past with my different shades, so I thought it would be fun to do that as part of this project. So each update, I randomly roll in 4 new eyeshadows, and then I get to pair with them however many other singles I want. I try to use those first 4 shades 4 times each before I would roll in new ones. The other shades, I count the uses, and so then, at some point in the year, they might also get their uses completed that way. Otherwise, they'll just get rolled in on their own. And then I also pick a palette to use along with them, and I'm trying to create 5 looks with each palette this year. So for my first round of eyeshadows, I'm going to try to have the B-roll stuff on the screen, like pictures and all that. I decided to use my Marvelous Mauves palette with the shades I picked. So basically I had kind of a random color story to start with, because I had a green, 2 basically white shades because one was just a shiny one, and then a shimmery blue. I was actually able to make some looks with them, because the green was a matte, it kind of blended with the blue, and it was interesting. I was also able to use them with the shadows I picked. So I gave myself some neutral tones, I gave myself a matte blue, a shimmery green, and then some color shifty ones. With the color shifty ones, I picked this one shade, The Greatest Gift, and every time I always feel like it should be more pinky than it actually is, because it looks pink, but it really comes off more of this glowy green on the eyes. And when I was picking it, I thought the Mauves palette would work well with it, and it did. And when I turn my eye, you do see the pink base of it, so it does have that. It's just, I always think of it as a pink shadow, and really it worked more as a green shadow, which is good since I had green. But yeah, so, it's just sort of fun to play with the shadows and use them in different ways, just to come up with new combinations. I was able to complete the main 4 shades pretty easily, which is why I'm back here already. And I only made 3 looks with my Mauves palette, so I will still need to do 2 more during the year, but I figure I have way more singles than I do palettes, so, I'll just pick them at different points. It's not a big deal. I've also decided that if there are, obviously if I have some palettes that I'm just not using, I'll try to force myself, I guess, to use them in some sort of way, shoehorn them in a bit. But I will allow myself to repeat palettes if I feel they would go really well with a certain color story, even if I've already done the 5 looks, just because maybe that means it's a favorite palette and it's very versatile or something like that. So for the other shades that I rolled in, there was a darkish brown, medium brown kind of shade that I did also complete the uses. And then the shade Prismatic, I also used the 4 times. So, those will also then be, counted as done. I didn't mark them off on my little wheel. So basically, if they come up, I'll just be like, oh, I already did those, moving on, assuming that I remember that. All right, so for my new roll-in shades, I'm gonna have them appearing on the screen. It was kind of interesting because I actually had the one shade already in my palette, because I had left some room in the palette so I could bring in other shadows as I felt like it, just, why not? At some point I wanted a yellow because I wanted to pair it with the Greatest Gift shade, and then I also felt like it would go well with the blue and green. There's a person I follow on Instagram. She had done an eyeshadow look that had blue and then blended it with some green and yellow. At least I think she had green. Now I'm trying to remember. She definitely had yellow, which obviously makes green. So maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Or maybe I just brought in green to help me blend it. And then the other fun part was that she had a bit of like pink, or almost like a purpley kind of pink though, with the blue. And I really liked that because I do have problems getting myself wearing blue, and pink and purple help me do that, and same with green. The pink and purple help me with green as well. So I made a look, but I needed a yellow. I actually brought in 2 yellows and I used both of them because the Gisa Laying shade is more on the subtle side and the other yellow is from my Vivid Pigments palette, so that one is more vivid. But yeah, so I made a look with that. It's on my Instagram and I was happy with how it turned out, so that was cool. But yeah, so Gisa Laying got rolled in. There's also another eyeshadow, nothing special, but it's called Tiger Tail. It was kind of similar to a copper shade that I had been using, and I was a little sad to pull it out of the palette, so I'm like, well, this kind of replaces it. And then 2 eyeshadows from my Juicy Boost palette. So at first I was just gonna keep them in because I decided also to use this palette because I figure if half of the shades came from this, then why not use the palette it's with, because they should go together. And I did end up taking them out because I wanted to make sure I was using those shades and I wanted to be able to visualize a color palette with them. So you see them on the screen. And then, you know, I have it right here. So yeah, I did kind of play around with how I arranged them. I had them different ways, but yeah, so the 4 shades, you know, were the Tiger's Tail, Gisa Laying, the Juicy Boost shade number 18, and then this was number 10. So I had 3 matte shadows. So I decided I needed to bring in a bunch of shimmer shades to kind of go along with this. I did decide to keep 2 shades from my last round. I put them away, but then I brought them back. And I'm just going to continue the tallies for them. So the Peachy Keen and then this more light shimmery green, it's from Sydney Grace. I decided to keep those because I thought they would go well with it. But then I also brought in a dark shimmery green, partly because that's a shade that I feel not as inclined to use. So if I have it with, you know, this matte green, maybe I would be more likely to use it and get those uses. And maybe it'll get me to like it more, who knows. And then, you know, I wanted another fun shimmer, so I had the Unexpected, and Lyra was actually, this one I always think is yellow, and it's not. I know it looks yellow. It's just like that Greatest Gift, where it's like I go off that base shade, and that's not what you see, but it is still really pretty, and I like it in the palette with it, so, you know, I'll make it work. And I have already done 2 looks using this, and just because I get so excited to use them once I make it. I also have been really liking making these palettes. It's been just so fun to go through my collection and pick things because, you know, it's like, yeah, I have 4 shades I have to use, but then I can go wild with whatever. And so far, I feel like I've been making fairly cohesive color stories. They're not really all over the place. So maybe either I'll be forced to pick some that are more random, or maybe I'll try to just challenge myself with some more random color stories. But I kind of like them looking the way that they do right now. And then I have my Juicy Boost palette, like I said. So I pulled out those 2 shades. So nothing pulled out from this set. But yeah, I've already used, like I said, in the look I'd used, I used the very pale yellow here called Citrus Zinger. I used the shimmery gold. I used this shiny pink in a different look. There's other 2 I used in the same look. And then, I used the orange, and I think that is it from like this half here. But I have a little bit of a dip going in that orange, which is nice for me to see because normally I'm an orange eyeshadow person. So who knows, maybe I will become more, because I think I might have used the orange a bit with that first look. But yeah, so like I said, I will report back. I don't know if it's going to be as fast this time or not. Like I said, I've been really inspired to make the color stories and then use the color stories. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like, oh, I have to make a look with this green or this blue. It's just kind of how it's happening. It's kind of funny that I had a matte green eyeshadow in the first and the second palette so far, but you know, like I said, this is all about trying to get me to use all of my eyeshadows and not just, you know, my favorites, but then pairing my favorites with some lesser ones and hopefully enjoying them in new ways. So if you like seeing me make these color stories and using them, like I said, I am trying to remember to do looks and share them, but sometimes I'm in a rush. Sometimes you might notice my looks are like just eyes and not the rest because I might be going off to volunteer and then I'm wearing a mask, so like I don't want to have anything down here because it would get gross. Sometimes my hair isn't even dried yet or I haven't done anything. I just, oh, let me take the picture before I forget. And so yeah, so I'm trying to. But otherwise, yeah, I'm really happy that I started this project and I can't wait to see what colors I will get in the next rotation. But for now, I hope you will be doing well, and until my next video, I will see you then. Bye!